Who are your 6 wide receivers if the season starts today?
So he's not on them just
Who
here,
is?
just to start.
Yeah.
It would be Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, Mac Hollins, Kyle Williams, and then honestly pick from Jalen Polk, who I think would be the favorite right now, Javon Baker, Efton Chisholm, and whomever else. But the 5 for me are I feel still pretty good about. The interesting part is though, do you think that if Chisholm does make the roster, like makes them an offer they cannot refuse, that means Demario Douglas gets traded or otherwise can't survive and function in the same receivers room as a guy who basically also will only play the slot?
Personally, I would not do that just because Demario Douglas has like a playmaking ability that I think like other wide receivers on the roster don't. So even if he's not your starting slot, I think you can use him on end arounds. I think you can use him on like gadget plays. Like I think that he could be Marcus Jones from a couple of years ago in your offense. And like, that's not a bad option to have as like a 4th or 5th wide receiver. It is tough right now to pick out 5. I think like Stephon Diggs, Mac Hollins, and Kyle Williams are, I guess, your locks. But then like, yeah, so you've got Demario Douglas, I would have on there personally. Keyshawn Boutte, I think I would have on there. And then you're talking about Baker, Bourne, Chisholm, and Polk. So like, we're not lying when we say this is like a crowded wide receiver group. Maybe they keep 7. They kept, I think, 7 or 8 at the beginning of last season. So maybe they keep 7, but yeah, like Chisholm still has to prove himself. And basically I think that like, he almost has to prove himself as like a starter to make this team. So we'll see if he can do that. But yeah, it's still a long way to go to like ensure that he's got a roster spot. And if I was doing a 53-man roster projection, which I'll probably do at the end of the spring, I don't know if he would be on there right now, but like he's making a very strong case. And the fact that like Keyshawn Boutte didn't catch a pass in the OTA Open the Media last week. I think he got 1 pass in team drills yesterday.
He had 2. It was a corner, a deep corner, which is a nice throw from Drake May and a slant route early in practice.
So he caught 2, and like Kyle Williams, like these guys are usually only catching like 1 or 2 passes or maybe 2 or 3 per practice. Like for a guy like Chisholm to catch 7, the context is important that like most of it was against Marcellus Dial or like backup cornerbacks, but still like no one else, I don't think anyone else in front of the media has caught 7 passes in one of these sessions. So it shows a lot, and we'll see what else it means over the rest of the spring and summer. But he's knocking down the door for a roster spot.
While we're on the wide receivers, the other top targets yesterday were Douglas, who caught all 4 targets, and Travion Henderson, who had 3. And I want to get into the running backs. But yeah, the receivers room is very much in flux. I think it very well could be until the end of training camp, which honestly is a good thing. You know, like guys hung on the roster the last 2 years, and I would even argue Keyshawn Boutte to some degree as a rookie, not last year, because they just had no other options. The Patriots have options now. They might not be great, and this all, of course, assumes that Stephon Diggs remains at the top, but this is a good thing for them. Mac
I think competition. I think back end of roster competition is important.
Mm-hmm.
I would like them to decide who they want to be their top 3 wide receivers, if not entering training camp, like within a few days. Because I would want Drake May to get as much chemistry as possible with those top 3 guys. Because like we've seen it over the last few years where it's like, okay, so they've got this rotation of like 4 or 5 starting wide receivers, and then no one really builds a great rapport with the quarterback. Guys are constantly being shuffled in and out of the depth chart, like starting role. It just hasn't worked now for like 4 years. So I think it's going to be difficult to do, but like these guys have played, they've played all spring. Give them a week into training camp and then decide your 3 starters and roll from there, and then decide who the other 3 guys on the roster are going to be. But like, I don't know. I'm just so tired of seeing like, okay, we have no idea who the top 3 wide receivers are, and then it goes poorly during the season.
Would you take a functioning left tackle or 3 receivers that you can point to in late July and be like, they're the guys who are going to be there in late October?
Wait, what was that?
Would you rather a left tackle, like things that you're tired of seeing?
Oh yeah, no, I mean like, yeah, I'd rather a left tackle, but I still like, it's just been way too many years of this where it's like Kendrick Bourne getting like being a starter 1 week, then benched the next. And like, that wasn't only last year, that was happening in 2022 as well. Like this dates back pretty far now at this point.
I am with you. I just think it feels like a pipe dream given Stephon Diggs' health and the fact that it is a new offense. So the idea that you know exactly what you have with these players in this scheme, and for some of them catching passes from a new quarterback is just going to take time to develop. So I think that will lend itself all to rotations and the coaches wanting to get good looks at other guys.
Yeah.
I would say after the second preseason game is when I want to know who those guys are. And there's a quick turnaround because they'll have joint practices with the Commanders, and then their first preseason game, joint practices with the Vikings, second preseason game. And then there are 5 days, and they're like, yeah, everyone who's not going to make the team is going to play against the Giants in the quickest turnaround I've seen in the preseason in a long time. Because I did think if we want to decide now, if we want to do this June 3rd, Stephon Diggs at X, Demario Douglas in the slot, and then fight it out at Z. Like if you really want to hit fast forward, to me, I think that's a discussion.
Yeah. And I think the Z would, like, ultimately, if the season starts today, come down between, like, Bourne and Booty, probably, as being the guys who are, like, most ready to start in the NFL right now. And, like, Bourne has the most experience, so I guess I'd throw Bourne in there. But, yeah, I'd like to see some belief in, like, who Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel really think are, like, the top 3 guys, and just roll with it. But, like you said, that might be a pipe dream.
And the point about Bourne and Booty that I want to dismount off of and get to attendance and then Drake May and the rest of our notes is they don't contribute on special teams. Like that's just what it is. I mean, Booty has been thrown in there here and there in OTAs, but Bourne is off to the side when he's there, and he wasn't yesterday. Right. Just playing catch and working with the staff or position coach, whatever. So if they fall back to the pack from where you just projected them as basically the number 3 and 4 receiver right now on the depth chart, and we know they're going to have to fight to earn those spots, the tie is going to go to the guy who contributes on special teams, which we know is going to be Matt Collins. Will have to be Ethan Chisholm in some part. And then who knows about Baker, but he was on those coverage teams last year, and Polk and Williams, who's obviously going to stick, and everybody else. So that's where things stand.